This is Steve Hughes with Virtual Piano Studio. This lesson is going to cover tetrachords and building them into major scales. Now, before we get right into tetrachords, what I'd like to do is kind of talk about the origination of tetrachords and how it applies to music theory. So tetra means four, and so basically what we're doing is building four-note clusters. And we're going to put two of those together to build an 8-note scale. Now, how does this relate to music theory? How is it going to help me or help you to understand, what's the whole point, and how is it going to make my experience a better one? Well, first off, you may have seen this diagram, which is called the circle of fifths. A lot of musicians kind of refer to this as the foundation of music theory, because you can see how all of the keys of music relate together. So I'm going to start here on C, go to G, go to D, go to A, and there's a relationship there. C, up to the fifth note G, up to the fifth note D, up to the fifth note A, and so on and so forth. So that's why it's called the circle of fifths. This is a fifth interval from the first note to the fifth note of the key. So with that said, now how does that relate to tetrachords? Well, in a minute I'll break down the tetrachords. But you can simply build two tetrachords on the first note and the fifth note, and that will give you the 8-note scale. You can also use the second tetrachord, the higher tetrachord of each scale, to create your new scale, and that's going to go through the circle of keys. So we're going to talk about that exercise and also just building these tetrachords into major scales in just a random order, just to be able to practice building these. And the other thing I want to mention is a lot of students, musicians, hobbyists may just kind of start tinkering around, playing the major scales and focusing on fingering and technique, when you really need to get a handle on the shapes. The shapes are the key. If you know the shapes, then everything else will fall into place a lot easier. Okay, we're going to talk about the formula first. What do I mean by formula? Well, I'm going to write down a series of abbreviations here. WWH, WWWH. What does that mean? Well, W stands for whole step. A whole step is two keys separating two notes, meaning G up to the very next black key is just a half step. G down to the very next black key is a half step. And it's just the very, very next key, no matter where you are on the keyboard. So E to F is a half step. E to F sharp is a whole step. So a whole step is two keys or two half steps, and a half step is each key. That is very important because you need to be able to understand whole and half steps on the, at least a basic level to be able to do this exercise, tetrachords. So, whole, WWH, if we start on C as an example. So, up a whole step, up a whole step, up a half step. Starting note, whole step, half step. That is one tetrachord, okay? And then the W that's in parentheses, that is the separation between the fourth to the fifth note. And then what we have is whole step, half step. And when you put that together, starting note, whole, half, whole, half. Here's the first tetrachord, here's the second tetrachord, and they are separated by a whole step. whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And I do recommend students to say it like that, to group it into whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, until it's just stuck in your head and you don't have to think about, all of that. That will help you with your tetrachords. Okay, so next up, we're going to go ahead, practice building some random tetrachord scales and random notes, and then put them in order to follow the sequence of the circle of fifths. So we're going to go ahead and start with C. And with my left hand, I'm going to take my fourth finger. We're going to use the first four fingers in each hand. We're going to eliminate the pinky because it's a lot easier with the thumbs in the middle versus the second finger in the middle. First tetrachord in the key of C. Start on C, D, E, F. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then add the right hand up a whole step. 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, it's very easy to see the C major scale, all white keys. So use this as a kind of a foundation template to always go back to. First tetrachord, second tetrachord. The two tetrachords put together gives you the full C major scale from C up to C. And now let's go ahead and play the scale from bottom to top. And we're doing this to really get the sound in our head. Even if we're not doing all of the fingering that's required, we're using this now as a way to train our ears to hear the major scale sound, so later on we could make those adjustments quickly. Okay, so let's go to another random key. I'm going to pick E flat. Okay, and I need to remind myself to change the key here. All right, here we go. So E flat. Whole step, half step. Okay, and then take my right thumb up a whole step and create the second tetrachord. Whole step, half step. And now I'm going to play it from bottom to top. It's very common that you will mess up in the first part of your practice because of the whole and the half steps. So your ears are going to tell you if it's incorrect or not. All right, let's go to another random key. Let's pick B. All right. Here we go. All right, so we have B, fourth finger, whole, half. Okay, thumb up a whole step, create the second tetrachord, whole step, half step. There we go. Okay, so now let's play from bottom to top. Concentrate on the oral side, playing very slowly. All right, so my recommendation when building major scales with tetrachords after getting the half and the whole steps down and kind of seeing how it relates to the circle of fifths is to build them randomly. So you're not like worried about going in any certain order, and it really forces you to think and to get the concepts down. Now we're going to go to the second phase, which is actually following the circle of fifths. So I'm going to go back and just kind of remind you the order we're going to go in. We're going to start on C, and then each new tetrachord that we add, we're going to follow that order. D, A, E, B, F sharp, G flat, and then we get to what's called the enharmonic keys. And basically, the very, very bottom three here, they're not labeled as such, but B is also C flat, D flat is also C sharp. We'll get into that in another lesson. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to start from C. Okay. second tetrachord of G. All right. So now let's replace the right hand with our left hand on the G tetrachord. And you want to think of it as such, the names of the tetrachord. So G tetrachord, now we're going to add the D tetrachord, whole half, that gives us G major. Okay, so the right hand was a D tetrachord. So we're not going to keep going up and up and up. We're going to alternate. So we're going to come down, left hand on the D tetrachord. And we're going to add, go up a whole step, the A tetrachord. That's D major. Then we're going to replace the right hand with the left hand. We have the A tetrachord. And now we're going to add, go up a whole step. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to, the left hand is going to go to the E tetrachord. And then we're going to go up a whole step to B and add the second tetrachord. All right, the left hand is going to go to the B tetrachord. We'll go down here. The right hand is going to go up a whole step to F sharp and build that tetrachord. Now, as you're doing this, I would also recommend, I'm going to go to the F sharp tetrachord in the left hand. As you're doing this, I would recommend writing out the notes. Even if it's harmonically incorrect, meaning if you get the sharp or the flat wrong. Discovery is so important. Discovery without having something in front of you telling you exactly what it is. You know, you want to discover things in this process. You're going to learn more than doing that, than following a worksheet or using examples to fill in the gaps. So we're on F sharp. So then go up a whole step with a thumb to C sharp. Build the tetrachord. Okay, now we're essentially going to, I'm going to go backwards in the flat keys now. D flat. It was C sharp, remember? And then up a whole step. And you can use this video as a helpful guide. I'm just saying that once you get past the point of using a helpful guide, then doing it just by looking and finding the shapes on the keyboard using your ears, that's the best approach. So there's A flat. Okay, so now here's the E flat tetrachord, left hand there. And then let's add, go up a whole step. And as you're doing this, you're going to train yourself in the circle of fifths. It's just going to happen. So that's another wonderful reason to go through this method. B flat tetrachord, up a whole step to F. And we're almost back to where we started. Left hand on the F tetrachord. Up a whole step to C tetrachord. You'll notice, okay, I'm back to C. And then all right. So just to review, whole steps and half steps. Make sure you got that down first. To have just a basic understanding of what the circle of fifths mean. It's just going up a fifth interval from the starting note, and then that gets you to your next key. And when you go through all 12 keys, you end up back where you started. And then when you do the tetrachord exercise, you're really learning how to see and build the 4-note tetrachords, and then making sure you understand it's whole, half for each tetrachord. And then to build the scale, it's whole, half, and then whole step as the distance between the two tetrachords, and then another whole, half. And then when you do that, then you can just have your left hand follow your right hand throughout, and then let your ears be your guide to make sure that the pattern sounds the same, and double check yourself to make sure you didn't accidentally slip out of the key if you're doing the circle of key pattern. And also just practice randomly, and I would actually suggest doing that first. Random practice and then circle of keys.